My city is New York City, and what I have noticed is that it is constantly developing and changing. There are endless possibilities to what can be created. People are always fascinated by what it has to offer. You got loads of culture every turn you take. When you think of a city, you think of a fast-paced lifestyle. It is a home for people from all kinds of backgrounds, and each person has a story to tell on how they ended up in the Big Apple. Each neighborhood has its own distinct style and personality. Unfortunately, in the process of a forever changing city, people are moved around and end up being displaced, and those neighborhoods that we grew up in start to change and look unfamiliar.
You don't know your community until you step out and you come back and you give it another look and another lens. And it's so much things have changed, and my friends don't live here anymore. Some of them moved to the Bronx more, and it's like because everybody's moving them out to the Bronx. And it's cheaper to live in the Bronx. Even I was considering moving out to the Bronx. But I don't want to, like I was thinking, like, if I ever get to move, how would I feel about leaving my neighborhood? And I cried because I can't. I feel so connected with it.
In the recent years, there has been a rapid pace of change in Harlem, New York, a neighborhood that I moved into when I was 10 years old. I have noticed a new crowd of people moving in, the empty lots being transformed into multi-million-dollar condos, and mom-and-pop shops being bought out and replaced by corporations. This is due to the process of gentrification, which blatantly means the buying and renovation of houses and stores in deteriorated urban neighborhoods by upper or middle-income families or individuals, thus improving property value but often displacing low-income families and small businesses. I wanted to film the changes that were happening in my neighborhood and document the process. When I started to shoot, I began to feel uncomfortable with my camera. In the past 5 years, there has been a lot more tourists and newcomers arriving into Harlem. I'm mindful a lot of them are fair-skinned like me, and I don't want to be taken as a tourist in my own neighborhood. This is a place where I grew up and a place I call home. Seeing how some of the new neighbors act in the community frustrates me. There's rare eye contact, lack of care, and not a lot of interest of getting to know the neighbors. It's as though they're just living here blindly. My family and I have a close relationship to the neighborhood, especially my mother. She's known by a lot of our neighbors and businesses, but mainly by the old heads. She's always made it essential to know the people you live around, because at the end of the day, it affects us all. Do you smell that? It smells like change, and it smells a little funky. I have this strange feeling in my bones that something isn't right. The place I grew up in seems to be transforming. I'm trying to keep my eyes peeled open because each time I blink, there goes something new or replaced. I feel like there is this broom sweeping over and crushing what's left of our neighborhood, making sure nothing gets left behind. But where do these bits and pieces go? Under a doormat to be stepped on and having to rebuild a once comfortable home, or discarded in a trash bin and left for someone else to deal with? Seems like the voices that seek to find out are silenced by the cold hard green placed in their palms and given no answers. There are nothing but questions unanswered, and a vortex that is coming in and ripping the root of history in one's community. But then there are some who are in the eye of the storm where it is quiet and calm, and just watching the chaos around them because they do not know what to do. Gentrification? A gentle process or a horrific one? Something that seems so unstoppable because capitalist eyes do not see empathy, but have larceny in its heart and survives on the greedy appetite which feeds on the hardships of others by piggybacking on their shoulders, weighing down hopes of having a better life in this nightmare called American dream. Who is it to blame if we strive on the economic system that we so much rely on? Who do I turn to complain when money has no face because it is in the hands of too many people and I am directed from one line to another, trying to figure out who is at the top when it gets way too complicated? Memorable places are becoming unfamiliar, Starbucks and corporate stores popping up left and right, being the markers of change and welcoming a different crowd than those from the neighborhood. Questions like, wasn't that there? And when did that come here? Only to reply with confusion. I smell it all right, and it's smelling a bit funky.
I would describe gentrification as the influx of the upper and the middle class and well, not necessarily, but it's kind of the displacement of the lower class just for economic growth.
They're not like being forced out or anything like that, but
they just, sooner or later they're
Gonna be displaced because they can't afford it.
they really have no choice.
Trash cans flooded, tumbling onto the ground. My body consumes the contaminated winds. Mice racing past my feet and down into the nearby sewer in these silent blocks. A speeding, beating heart ready to throw itself out of your chest silent. Worse enough are the dark skies, aggressive calls from strangers, loitering in front of buildings and leaning out of their windows. One left turn and I recognize the empty lot on the left and unkept garden on the right, my building straight ahead. I secure the lock leading to the lobby, then the one to my home where I'm safest, until shots are fired through a once quiet night. Neighbors I know not to trust just yet for calls for help if ever needed in these rough streets. No sirens sound at any point in this cycle. Accustomed now to this new building and a neighborhood already stuck in its ways.
Harlem's considered the mecca of the black experience in America. If you ask people about Harlem, the first thing they think is Black America. Harlem is where most people think of successful blacks, not just jazz, because it's well known for its jazz culture as well, but blacks who are up and coming or well-to-do. That's what Harlem personifies the American dreams for Black America. They say if you can make it in New York, you can make it anywhere. Well, if you can make it in Harlem, you can make it anywhere.
There's so much glory and so much good stuff in this community. There is no place in the world like Harlem. Just Harlem, not even New York City, not New York State. There's no place in the world like Harlem. It's just so different and diverse and good but bad at the same time. It's everything. In Harlem, I can go from a brownstone, being in a brownstone, being at a wine and cheese event, to a fucking project party. Like, it's just so great. It's great. It's great. I love it. You can't get that nowhere.
It's really ground zero. It's convenient to everything. I mean, if you look at Harlem from east to west, the train lines, the way they stop. I mean, the one way over, then the D and the A, then the 2, and then the 5 and the 4 over on the east side, and the 6. So everything runs through Harlem. It's narrow enough. It's accessible to everything. Get downtown in 20 minutes, 10 minutes. And so, Harlem is pretty convenient.
The crime rates aren't that bad anymore. I remember you couldn't even walk down the street at 1, 2 in the morning, and now I feel completely safe walking to my house at 4 a.m. So I guess that's the upside, but the rent is getting crazy. But that's the one conversation we definitely have at the dinner table often. So it's about what do you want to do next, and the conflict now is my parents want to move out of Manhattan overall because they see that the prices are going up, they're skyrocketing. So you wouldn't be able to live on this island at all at some point. It sucks.
Since there has been a lot of change happening in the neighborhood, I wanted to have a conversation about it with my family and a close family friend, Jackie, who moved into the neighborhood a few years ago. I wanted to know her experience and opinions on the current matter.
So I came to Harlem, I guess I always loved Manhattan. Always loved Manhattan, and just like anything else, it's interesting. I was priced out of Brooklyn. I lived all my life, priced out of Brooklyn, and yes, as your mom said, my church was there. And as the Lord so have it, they were wise enough to buy a second property and had the space there.
What part of Brooklyn were you living in?
Crown Heights.
And the building that you're living in, is that the one that the church bought?
Mm-hmm.
And is it rent stabilized?
It's owned by our church, and it's a mixed-use property. It's under the books, it's considered a mixed-use property. So
everything belongs to majority of churches in Harlem. Abyssinian is the
property owner.
The property owner a lot. So basically, go on each block. There is up to 5 churches in each block.
Yeah.
And they owned by the churches.
I am not a proponent for these big corporate structure, because I think just the organic way of community, and you know, the people in the community is what build it and make it. That is being eroded, you know, with these big corporations coming. They're so far removed from what's happening here, and they're all about just making a dollar.
I saw those guys develop 7th Avenue, right? 8th Avenue. But you know what? All the lower storefronts were bare because the landlords were waiting for some super duper tenant that would pay them what they wanted.
Right.
In the meantime, the stores that the community would like to move in had no chance to move in because of the rents those guys were asking, and they will probably be able to get a tax write-off as well. So the point is that what the landlords want are oftentimes at odds with what the community